Бачу представників компанії ENG, компанія, яка, до речі, на території України впроваджує сертифікат американської програми органічного сільського господарства, і це важлива, дуже важливий стандарт. Важливий, тому що проекти від Органічної України, вони вже розширюють ринки збуту, і це Сполучені Штати Америки, тому ми будемо максимально впроваджувати американський стандарт, скажімо так, на теренах України. Більше того, в наших планах, таких мрій скоріше, тому що планів багато, ви можете приєднатися, це колективна сертифікація європейського стандарту, українського стандарту і американського стандарту. Якщо представники хочуть щось сказати, команда Органічної України, переведіть EDCO.UA в формат членів групи, ви можете включити звук, включити відео і сказати пару слів, тому що ми сьогодні будемо говорити про перехід від хімічного до органічного сільського господарства. І перше, що треба зробити, це вибрати стандарт, і друге, пройти відповідно там певний аудит, я буду про це розказувати, і обрати орган сертифікації. Тому ми представляємо, ми консолідуємо ринок, і консолідація об'єднання органів сертифікації – це теж одна із наших задач. Тому команда, переведіть, якщо компанія хоче, можна вийти на зв'язок, щось сказати, але абсолютно спокійно пишіть у чаті. Всі наші учасники групи, взагалі учасники сьогоднішнього заходу, можуть спокійно писати у чаті, всі питання ми побачимо, почуємо, всі їх насправді то бачать. Більше того, ми їх проаналізуємо, і якщо десь випадково не зможемо відповісти відразу, то відповімо трошечки згодом. Отже, чи хоче нам щось сказати компанія EDCO в Україні? У вас є вже офіс, ви готові пропонувати сертифікацію?
Доброго ранку.
Так.
Дуже приємно бути на заході. Вчора весь день слухав дуже уважно і дуже багато актуальних тем на заході розглядається. Дуже приємно також бути в цій спільноті органічній. Поки що офісу у нас немає, не знаю, чи буде, плануємо, є такі плани, але поки що я тут один в Україні знаходжуся, і по всім питанням у нас є електронні сторінки, і турецька, і українська, то по всім питанням можна мені телефонувати, писати, електронка.
Давайте контакти в чаті, діліться з задоволенням і українською версією, тому що, скажімо так, дозволю собі сказати це слово асортимент пропозиції від органів сертифікації і там свідоме прийняття рішення – це дуже важливо для аграрія, тому що це формування довіри. Виробник вправі абсолютно звернутися до всіх органів сертифікації і отримати свої пропозиції, знайти певні переваги, починаючи від якихось там локальних, особистих, комунікаційних і закінчуючи там, такими більш комерційними. Ми по супроводу до сертифікації, коли говоримо абсолютно, тобто не заангажовані жодним органом сертифікації, і я не дарма про це говорю. Більше того, ми би хотіли, чому я рада вас бачити, і так, вибачте, імпровізовано ініціюю вашу появу, тому що ми би хотіли насправді ну, такі від всіх органів сертифікації, які працюють на території України, більшу інтеграцію, скажімо так, і в органічну Україну, в сектор, тому що, ну, абсолютно безпідставно з'являються якісь непорозумілі там припущення. Цього знають, цього не знаю. Знаєте, так, там, ну, такі абсолютно не бізнес думки, не бізнес комунікації. Тому наша позиція – це інтегрувати, скажімо так, ініціювати, як я зараз, абсолютно відкриті до всіх. Якщо у вас є, от у мене одне із там перших, моя презентація – це перехід від хімічного сільського господарства до органічного. Повторю, що вибрати орган сертифікації. Було б добре, якби ви нам надіслали якусь, це до всіх органів сертифікації стосується, просто ви один із перших, я на вашому прикладі показую, надіслати таку, не знаю, пропозицію, перелік тієї ж самої там заявки, да, тому що українською мовою воно у нас лежить, і відповідно, коли до нас звертаються фермери, а вони звертаються все більше і більше, у нас є там от така заявка, там якісь елементарні комерційні пропозиції, і ви пам'ятаєте, що коли ми аналізували наш проект Альянсу, я зверталася до вас з чіткими запитами, скільки там це буде коштувати. Тому отакі от речей напрацьовуйте, надсилайте нам, ми будемо ними ділитися. Більше того, ну, завдання номер 1 на найближчий час для дорадчої служби, для нашої, це розмістити це все на сайті, і ну, всі виробники абсолютно у діджитал форматі зможуть знайомитися з інтегрованими в український ринок органами сертифікації.
Добре, добре, дуже дякую. Я підготую якесь. У нас, на жаль, вся інформація подається напряму в USDA, тому всі форми англійською, але я підготую щось таке, щоб наші фермери також могли зрозуміти все легко і так, якусь інформацію я пришлю.
Так,
дуже дякую вам.
Дякую. І я надіюсь, що вчора для вас було дуже багато цінної інформації, як для органу сертифікації, який має працювати.
Звичайно.
Це була наша ціль, тому що все-таки формування ринку в Україні, органічного ринку в Україні, воно йде за досить такою гарною, унікальною позицією, воно відразу формується в законодавчому полі. Ну, тому що дуже важко потім вигрібати із непорозумінь псевдоорганічних і будь-яких, тому ми йшли повільно, але абсолютно в законодавчому полі. Тому, ну і так десь заморочуємося над глибиною, поєднанням усіх політичних рівнів, але без цього насправді то неможливо. Тому приєднуйтеся, комунікуйте, надсилайте інформацію в чат, і, ну, тобто і ми, я думаю, що весь ринок відкритий. Ринок Сполучених Штатів нам дуже цікавий. У нас на носі ще один суперпроект, і ми хочемо і ягоди сертифікувати, і мед, і що там іще.
До речі, вже є сертифіковані ягоди по стандарту НОП. Це всім відома Ахімса, вони сертифікують і відправляють, вже була у них перша поставка навіть в Штати, так що я думаю, в цьому є сенс і перспектива.
Так, звичайно. Дякую, залишайтеся з нами.
Дуже дякую.
Так, ми продовжуємо.
Гарного дня.
Навзаєм, залишайтеся з нами.
Дякую.
Ми продовжуємо, чи розпочинаємо, чи продовжуємо. За кілька хвилин у нас буде офіційний, скажімо так, початок, але переклад у нас працює. Ліля, прошу, прокоментуй, будь ласка, щодо перекладу.
Доброго дня новим учасникам, які ми ще не говорили з вами. Дивіться, у нас з'явився переклад. Внизу ви бачите глобус, interpretation. Будь ласка, натискаєте на глобус і включаєте український канал для того, щоб почути переклад. Якщо ви хочете чути англійську мову, тоді вам треба нажати англійський канал. Альона, ти який канал будеш включати? Англійський чи український?
Я вже обрала український канал.
Доброго ранку.
Доброго ранку.
Так. Умови розіграшу я надіслала у чат. Всі посилання також надіслала.
Да.
В кінці ефіру ми скажемо переможців. Коментар можна дописати до 12:30.
Ліль, нам в чаті пишуть, що люди, які тільки що доєднуються, в них пустий чат, тому періодично потрібно
Ага.
дублювати умови конкурсу.
Добре, чудово. Тоді я періодично буду дублювати, звичайно, всю інформацію. Також зараз відправлю ще раз посилання на конгрес, саме на програму англомовний варіант та український.
У нас вже 10 година. Я думаю, що ми можемо починати для того, щоб писатися в дедлайни. Так, я думаю, що можемо.
So I guess we can begin because it's already 10 a.m. I'd like to welcome all of you at the 5th International Congress Organic Ukraine 2021, Transforming Together. And together we are stronger, and we will conduct our time from 10 till 1 p.m. with the topic, the main topic of the transition to the organic production of producing. We've got two moderators, Lilia Korsak, the coordinator of the Strategic Committee on the lens of the NGO Organic Ukraine. Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy that we have a powerful work today because yesterday we began with the first day of the Congress. It was very fruitful, very cool kind of work. And today we are beginning the second day already. So I wish all of us success and fruitful work. And also I'd like to say we've got the second moderator today, Mr. Volodymyr Krut. He's a microbiologist, expert on biologization of lending, and also he is the author of the training course for about the microbes. So, Volodymyr, good day, dear colleagues, dear listeners. I'm also happy to welcome you at this Congress. Yesterday was really rather interesting. Very important topics were discussed, political ones, and judicial and legal ones, how organic land is totally regulated in Ukraine and in the world. Today, we will speak about more practical issues about the agriculture and agronomy, on biological producing and also production and organic production. And so the transition from the intensive technology to the organic one is always very complicated and painful because you need to get rid of all of the usual means which you are using when you grow the crops. But thankfully, there are lots of tools which you can use. Some of the tools are in response of the time needs and the interest of the producers are developed some of the means which would allow to get rid of the pesticides remnants in the land, to shorten the process of some of the landlords from the intensive technology to organic. And of course, an important issue is the protection of the crops from the diseases, because we need to get rid of all of the usual fumicides and also from the pests. But we also, unfortunately, thankfully, there are clean means how we can do that. And of course, we just need to pay attention to the land with which you're working with and also the seeds you are going to work with. That is how we can get rid of lots of diseases just to prevent them, not just not to know what to do and to do in this organic technology, because it's much more complicated but much more interesting than the usual intensive technology. And of course, an important issue is the nutrition of the plants, because the essence of the plant is out of the mineral elements, water and solar light. The plants can create the organic substance for the sake of which we grow them. We get rid of the mineral elements, so we need to make the land prepared for it to be a nice environment, a perceptible and also helping environment which provide the mineral nutrition without the use of the mineral. And I do hope that together with the colleagues, we will answer the question how we could properly, quickly and efficiently come from the intensive technology to the organic technology, because the organic technology is the future for all of the plants. It is the reality already, and it will be really disseminated in the future. So I do hope we'll have a very interesting and fruitful work, and I do hope there will be lots of questions in the chat, which we will answer after our speeches. And we will also have prepared the poll, the survey for each of the speakers. It's a very cool topic, so let us get to know about each other more. Okay, so we are still joined by different participants, and we also created the Air and the Facebook page. But I'd like to say that there is no interpretation at Facebook. You can listen to the original language only. So to listen to the interpretation, you need to download the app of Zoom, and then you will hear the language which you select, English or Ukrainian, with all the necessary interpretation. Lilia, would you please write down if everything is okay with the interpretation? Both Ukrainian and English. Our Ukrainian listeners are choosing Ukrainian channel, pressing the button of the globe. Our English language guests are choosing English language at the interpretation. It is also important that we are recording that both in English and Ukrainian. And the video course about the transition from the non-organic to organic will be accessible to all of the participants, and you will be able to share with your Ukrainian and international colleagues. Okay, that is very cool. So it's written in the chat that everything is okay with the interpretation. There are no issues, no problems. That is okay. And preliminarily, I could add and introduce our speakers who will take part today in our Congress. We will begin with the issues of management and also of the transition to the organic technology to certification. That would be the speech of Olena Berezovska, who will tell about the details of the beginning of the work in the organic technology. I am a microbiologist, so I will tell how you can ease this transition towards the organic technology, how microorganisms can help in this issue to make this transition smooth and quick without any losses of harvest and yield. And also Yulia Mironova, she's the research on plants protection, will tell how exactly practically, with which means we can provide the protection of the plants and also the control of the pests and pathogens. After her, Volodymyr Silenko, the candidate of agricultural sciences and the head of the expert department of BTU Center, will tell about the details of the organic garden, how we can make your organic garden healthy and profitable. After him, Sergei Anatolievich Vdovenko, the expert on vegetables, will tell us about the organic vegetables, how we can make what we like to see every day on our table to make those dishes healthy, clean, and ecologically safe, and how to make this production economically profitable as well for the producer. And of course, Yuri Ivanovich Shulga, the expert of the animal growing in the BTU Center, will tell about composting and producing of the composts to provide the nutrition of the plants in the organic environment, which is also a very important topic because the nutrition without the mineral fertilizers is very important for the organic agriculture. Thank you, Volodymyr, that you reminded us about the agenda of our event. So, let us look who of the speakers have joined us. We've got Yulia Mironova here, Sergei Vdovenko is here, Yuri Shulga is with us. So our speakers are joining us gradually, and our participants are also joining us. Perfect. Volodymyr, good day. Maybe you would like to provide an introductory speech. Hello, everybody. Well, of course, there is something to add. The topic is very necessary because yesterday this event was very interesting. Today we are continuing with it. So I guess that from behalf of the speakers, I welcome all of the participants, and I think that we will do everything possible and will provide the information which would be very useful for you as the producers of organic products, because certification is now developing, and we can see the worldwide and foreign communities joining, or we are joining the foreign community, in fact, but the organic movement is there, it exists, and it is developing. So we do everything possible, and we will do everything possible for it to be more powerful, more acting and working. So have a good day and fruitful work. Thank you. Well, I think that we can begin and go on with the agenda in the working rhythm. 10 minutes of waiting have passed. So I think our experienced witnesses that the people will join us eventually during the whole event. We will go on, but we need to respect those who came in time, so we may begin. Let us have more time for the discussion. Then we do hope to have active communication in the chat. Please pose any questions, and we will find an opportunity to find answers and responses. So we are beginning, right? Lilia, Volodymyr? Yes, we are beginning then. Ms. Olena, please, the floor is yours. Okay. So the key topic which will be mentioned today is the transition from non-organic producing to the organic one. So in fact, it seems to be easy, but still it is the main. Well, you need to make a choice. Why we need that transition? Because at least we need a choice. There are several important points which I can bravely mention basing upon my multi-year experience. In fact, everyone, and we have conducted lots of ideas together with BTU company, lots of events and measures, everybody wants to have the transition to the organic production. But some people don't know what that is, and we may explain that. Someone has certain risks and some maybe engagement, and there is no financial freedom. Yes, this is the huge risk, but it can be solved. It's not that complicated and hard how the technologies of agriculture can be done, and we will emphasize on the technologies exactly today. I would like to say that the organization the main organizer of this part of the Congress of Organic Ukraine is the company of BTU Center, the general sponsor of our Congress, Organic Ukraine. And it's always not an accident, because BTU Center company is really the leader in the producing of medicines in Ukraine. We've presented yesterday the wonderful piece of information from Mr. Bolokonsky, who is the head of the marketing department of BTU Center company, the commercial director. So the opportunities are there, and also we have the biomedicine. So we will be speaking about technologies today. Now I will share my screen with my presentation. Where can I do that? Here it is. Would you tell me if you can see them? Yes, we do. Okay, I will begin from the very beginning. So here it is. Right, I do hope everything is okay. And I can begin. Okay. Would you please tell me, we will watch the video later. I missed the button, sorry, I skipped the button. No, everything was totally okay, yes, okay. If everything is okay, then I may begin, right? Yes. So how can we have the proper transition from the chemical agriculture to the organic one? I would like to change the slide, but it's not working. Well, try to use the arrows. Well, you see, you had a rehearsal. Okay. Let's move on in this traditional way, because I do hope that you can see me and we will stay in the same format. So, the accompanying of the certification of organic production. What this accompanying means for the certification, this monitoring can be divided into two stages. The choice, because you can take a decision that I'd like to have this proper transition from the chemical agriculture to the organic one, or this could be the organic agriculture already, which has taken the decision already, has had this transition, but needs some of the administration help and support. We will concentrate on the first part today, and we will consider the 7 stages. Altogether, those are 7 stages. So the first one is the choice of the standard. First, we need to get acquainted with the standards. The standards, well, you can get to know them at the websites of the certification bodies, in our legislation of Ukraine, at the website of foreign certification bodies, and to precisely consider which the rules and the requirements and principles are working in the organic production. The standards are very numerous, but all of them are based upon the whole organic production is based on the voluntary decision to have this transition to the organic production. It is important that organic standards are the additional layer for the compulsory overall state standards of safety of food, environmental compulsory standards. So we need to definitely understand the difference between the compulsory and voluntary standards of organic production. So when you've chosen the standard, you're choosing then, you're conducting the second step. This is the primary audit of your economic entity. First of all, you understand what's the type of the activities you can do in your economic entity according to different spheres of the conduction of organic production. This could be animal plants and processing, and also bee culture, aquaculture, and even the turnover can be there. In Ukraine, we have the turnover, which is separately certified there. And also a very important thing when you define the landlord, if of course you are not certifying the processing and the turnover, because the legislation sphere where you use the land is the first obstacle, or maybe the lack of your activity in the legislation field will be the first obstacle, which won't give an opportunity to go on with the dialogue about the certification of organic production. So you need to define whether you document the form of ownership, whether you conduct the registration if you personally are the economic entity. If you have the spontaneous crops, you need to get an official permit to get the collection at the territory of spontaneous crops. Everywhere, in all of the spheres, there are certain developed documents, and Organic Country, our organization, can provide you with them. Then we analyze the risks with the economic activity to deal with the organic production. Here we've written, for instance, it's too expensive to change the plastic frames in 1,000 beehives, so it's not reasonable. Then the land bank in the company can be not sufficient for the business plan to be economically reasonable. The company is already growing the same non-organic product and it is banned. If the company is growing, for instance, buckwheat, which is non-organic, and wants to create organic, or for instance, buckwheat honey, it is impossible, in fact. So all of that is analyzed, all of that is separated, written down, and is in the second stage package of the primary audit. Well, of course, we can find the solutions which are connected with the period of the transition period, or at this stage, together with the companies, we are taking the decision not to have the transition, not to be certified with those these reasons, but just to use the methods which are allowed for the organic production. And here's the main first emphasis. Those technologies which will be mentioned from the experts, they can be named the first stage of biologization of the agriculture. Yes, to get the certificate, there can be some obstacles you cannot overcome, but to begin biologization, first steps, you need to replace pesticides for the microbicides. So the next step, to choose the body for certification. Today, we already had the certification bodies representatives at CO. Yesterday, we had 4 certification bodies representatives which provide the active organic standard activity in Ukraine, Ceres, Bioinspector, Control Union. So you're choosing the certification body and authority. The next part, you are filling the application and the contract. This is a very important stage because each of the certification bodies has its own details and nuances. So the information which the certification bodies needs, they are mostly very similar. You analyze the package of the documents needed, you're sending it out, you analyze the commercial offer, and from the signed contract, in fact, you begin your transition period since you signed your contract. It is important to understand that because, for instance, according to the Ukrainian legislation, you are becoming the operator of organic production, and in fact, you are claiming for the state support, the regional support, the local support, any type of support, since you signed the contract. So the signing of the contract mostly, as a rule, is offering you to create 100% prepayment for a year. And again, I should emphasize what's important here. The inspection is conducting, the certification is conducted every year. Annually, you will go on, continue the contract, re-sign it. And I would advise you to treat it as just a crazy opportunity to make your business in order, because the signing of the contract Well, you're taking an obligation to be compliant to all of the rules which the certification body can give you. Then, the next stage, the fifth step is we can see, well, those steps can be the fifth and the sixth, they can be done simultaneously or they can be changed, but still, we are offering the training of the staff instantly. During this training, it is conducted in the economic entity itself for the people who are working there, for one head of the department or two of them. By the way, coming back to the previous step of the application and the contract, in the application and in the contract, you need to document the person who is responsible for the organic production. Sure, for the smaller economic entities, the customers and the performers, the executors of the contract and the agronom is the same person. But still, you need to acknowledge that in this case, this person is conducting all of the necessary obligations, both of the superior and the financial director and the agronome, and he's responsible for the organic production. So, as for the training, what do we get acquainted with? I've created 3 points with the principles and requirements of organic production. I do understand that it was mentioned above in the beginning, and it was the first condition to get acquainted with the principles and the requirements of the organic production. But when we go to the economic entity itself, to the economy as it is, and when we tell live about the requirements, the principles at the establishment, and when we show that at the field, in the garden, at the farm, you can provide the principles and the requirements of organic production, then you'll have a totally different attitude. So we get acquainted, because the policies and the guidelines are also developed simultaneously, we're getting acquainted with the policies of the conduction of organic production in this establishment or estate, at this farm. This is the document, this is the guideline, the methodology. This is just the roadmap, what needs to be done in the farm for the organic production to be sustainable at this land plot, because the land is the basis, and for this farm, for this business, well, we say that those documents are policies, the policy of the lands, and also the seeds change, the movement of the goods, composting, and also your waste management. All of those documents is the basis, the foundation, and the institutional memory in any of the farms. If it is half of the hectare or thousands of hectares, the guidelines are compulsory, and the only thing that you will have a bit of a different roadmap, step-by-step incremental guideline how it should be done. And the third emphasis I'd like to point out, and it's important as well, we get the staff acquainted with their own investment into the development of the farm where they are working. I'd like to mention one live case, because we were accompanying the certification in Poltava region, the farm, the part of a bigger holding, which used to be at this territory for long. So we've conducted one training, it seems to be okay. We gathered all of the employees and the tractor drivers. Everybody was told what organic production is. Everybody was so happy, they got acquainted with each other. And then one month passed, and the head said, there is no critical mass of understanding. It seems to be okay, but lots of efforts should be spent to prove that that's what's needed, that you cannot just provide the chemical means even against any of the mosquitoes in the warehouses, that you cannot provide any banned means to be used. So we provided the training at the school of the amalgamated community. We came to the children. and told them in all of the details what organic production is and which and what changes and why the changes will take place if their farm will provide the economic production, organic production. When the children came back home, the parents didn't have any doubts left that they will reread the principles, the requirements, and will comply to them. That is why for each person, for each human being in the farm, we need to understand what's their own investment into the development of the farm where he or she is working on the way of the transition from non-organic to organic. The next step is directly certification itself. So, having prepared all the preliminary and having done all the preliminary steps, we are coming closer to the inspection. Certification consists of two parts, inspection and assessment or evaluation. The inspector is coming of the certification body which you chose and is checking the correspondence of the farming to the requirements and principles which you agreed to. He's reviewing the production, checking the documents, discussing all the details, taking the samples of everything from dust and the land if it is needed. So the inspector has his or her own methodology and is doing that in a peculiar but open way. What do I mean peculiar? Not engaged. Well, here it's written that inspector is not the one who is the decision maker. I like to say such a phrase which will resonate in all of the Ukrainians. Even if you feed the inspector with the most delicious borscht, and not only borscht, it will never impact the decision whether you get the certificate or not. Because the inspector is just documenting, he's checking the compliance, documenting the non-compliance, forming the package of inspection documents, and sending them out to the evaluator. The evaluator mostly doesn't know your borscht, doesn't know you personally. That is why he or she is working only with the form which was filled out by the inspector and assesses, evaluates all of the necessary developments, policies, trainings, signatures, pictures, analysis of the samples, which were provided by the person responsible for the organic production with the support of the consultant or on his or her own. What the evaluator does, he or she is checking the inspection documents, assesses, takes the decision. The certification committee of the certification body is reviewing this decision again and then provides the certificate, provides the offers to issue the certificate, provides the concluding estimation, and also gives the feedback where it is written in each of the positions a very precise opinion of the evaluator, what you need to improve, what needs to be changed, what is done in the proper way. From my behalf, I may say that it happens that organic production and organic certification will never be created not to give you the certificate, not to issue the certificate. That's why I said from the very beginning that you need to rely upon the prepayment a year before, and you will train how to provide the economic activity in a different way, because it's not just one provision where you can replace pesticides onto microbial drugs. It's the total change of the whole vision, how the farming is conducted. The seventh stage is the certificate issuing. I've made it a bigger one and detailed because besides the certificate where we mentioned what you certified, you have lots of permits. The permits to use ingredients for the processing, the permits for the use of certain biodrugs and also protection means, and also the permits for the seeds. Those are some of the documents which are reasons to issue the certificates which are mentioned in the certificate as it is. That's it about the stages. A couple of words again about the consulting, which is totally possible through the Agricultural Advisory Service of the NGO and Council Organic Ukraine. We are providing consultings for all of the subjects of farming, the economic entities. There are no restrictions about the expertise, the consulting and implementation of organic production, trainings if they are needed. According to the lists which are mentioned at the website of the Ministry of Economy, and the economic entity can get the compensation, the reimbursement for the consultation services from the state budget. And our team of advisors who are providing the services of the administrative and certification monitoring, we are doing that to achieve a very simple vision, that is organic product of food on the table of each of the Ukrainians. So we are shaping and developing the organic market of Ukraine and the whole world together. Thank you for your attention. I do hope that this button, which did not work to change the slides, did not impact the info I provided, so I'm ready to answer your questions. Olena, thank you so much for this presentation full of information, for your report. We can see that real experts are here. Thank you for your speech. And I'd like to say that if you've got any questions to Olena, please post them in the chat. We will mention them out loud. Even if the questions are English language, we will definitely translate them and we'll discuss them. And now we would like to introduce and present the BTU Center company, and let us watch a short video to get acquainted closer. BTU Center Company. The largest Ukrainian developer, manufacturer, and exporter of microbial and enzyme preparations for agriculture. Uses most effective strains of bacteria and fungi from own museum. The company offers plant protection and soil recovery solutions products for cattle farming. State-of-the-art equipment and adherence to standards are mandatory for microbiological production. Products comply with European quality standards and are suitable for organic farming according to the regulations. Products are kept at storehouses with suitable temperature and moisture conditions. Specially equipped transport delivers bioproducts timely to customers and all over the world. Thank you so much. And Olena, there is the question to you. Yes, sure. The comment, because the person is, Dmitro, is interested how you can motivate the intensive agrarian for the transition to the organic farming. Dmitro Volsky is asking from Ukr Oil. Yes, thank you. If our guests have any ideas how we can motivate, please share them. But what I think about that, first of all, is the financial motivation. And we've done a lot for that. various steps. For instance, the state support for per hectare, the state support of the reimbursement and compensation of the certification. It's not that substantial as a support in comparison with the scales we would like to develop, but still it gives an opportunity to get rid of the obstacles when the agrarians are just afraid of financial losses. So if it's not working, if something goes wrong, so there is certain financial support here, and it's cool. Then the money in the beginning, what's interesting for the agrarian, and sales, where I can sell the products themselves, especially if we position these products as a bit more expensive and that the demand is higher than the usual agrarian products. So what I can see here, and what Ukrolia, by the way, is doing, we need to create the co-investing, the chains of sales, maybe to co-invest the producers for the future farmers, maybe to contract beforehand the crops and yields. This is the additional mechanisms to some of the advantages which we can take into consideration. And what we are afraid of punishment. So we should punish for non-organic production. Yes, we are on this way. Yes, Volodymyr, this is our super idea. By the way, I cannot boast that we are the inventors of this idea. In the European Union, in the countries of European Union, the agrarian producers who are using pesticides, which are harming, I will not dwell upon the methodology now, they're paying fines. Yes, they're paying money for that. So this money is done for the development of the organic production, for additional dotations. So this week was very intensive. So we are discussing ecological, environmental fines, because non-organic production, and I am sorry with all of my friends and people who are doing non-organic production, but it harms environment. It harms the environment. That is why you need to pay fines, and those fines are coming to the local budgets, and the local budgets need to implement the local pilot projects of the development of organic production. And in the end, I will conclude with the initiation, the beginning of the intense producers. Again, out of the local budget, you can allocate land lots only for the organic production, and it's totally possible. And again, there are lots of details. There can be lots of various developments and experience. Even having watched the video of this Congress, you will be able to use and to get lots of insights. Thank you for the question. Thank you, Olena, for your answer. And again, I emphasize that if you've got any questions, you can write them down and we will consider those issues and points. Thank you, Olena. And now I'd like to ask Volodymyr to show his presentation and to tell about his topic. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Olena. That was an interesting idea with the punishment of non-organic producers. We need to shape it in a more loyal way, not to scare people off. But the concept itself is the proper one. And I wanted to say that really I like the European tendency towards this relief when we control the number of CO2 which is piled up in the land or exhausting the land, because this is one of the matters of principle to save environment, and one of the matters of principle for the, in fact, the land growing. So I will tell about that for the revegetation as well. I will tell about that later. So we already spoke and listened to the about the transition to the organic producing in the legal matters, and I will tell a bit how you can do that in practice for it to be quick and efficient. and how microorganisms and microbial drugs as the elements of organic technology will allow to come to and to have the proper transition to the organic production. So the first issue is the protection of the plants, of the crops from diseases. There are two main sources where the diseases of the crops can emerge. This is either the land where they pile up or the seeds. So a very important thing is the selection of the proper seeds for the organic producer, because healthy seeds won't have internal infections, and in the perspective, the crop will develop as a healthy one on its own. And also, of course, we need to pay attention that the land shouldn't always have lots of pathogens. And when we mostly speaking about a certain field which was under a very intensive processing technology, it is totally polluted with the pathogen microorganisms. So you need to pay attention to that, and not just to think what can be done with those diseases without the fungicides. The second issue is the piling up of all the accessible elements for nutrition of the crops. I told that we are getting rid from the mineral fertilizers, but the plant cannot get rid of mineral elements in its nutrition. The plants need them, so the microorganisms in the land are capable to provide the necessary amount of mineral nutrition which is necessary for the plant to provide the proper yield and to be healthy and strong. The third point is again the protection of the crops during the vegetation from the agents, from the casual stimulus of the causative agents and pathogenic agents, because we cannot get rid of them 100%. And if there is the coincidence of certain climate conditions and certain problems with nutrition, some malnutrition, some of the diseases can be developed, unfortunately, and the microorganisms can stop the development of those diseases during the vegetation. They can preserve the yield and improve its quality because there won't be any phytotoxins which will provoke the pathogens. The protection from the pests, of course, the organic technology is a very interesting technology in this case, because as soon as we begin to get rid of the chemical insecticides, we've got the natural agents of the pests control coming back to the field. Those are other insects which will hunt the pests, but still there can be certain conditions of the migrations of the pests, or certain climate conditions which can lead to the explosion of the number of the pests, and we can fight with them thanks to the biological agents. And also nutrition and stimulation for the growth and the development of the plants. The useful microorganisms, in their evolution, they got to know how to stimulate the plant, not like the pathogenic agents to suck out all of the juices out of the plants, but to strengthen it, to provide it with the sugars which the plant is creating during the photosynthesis. The providing of the high yield with high quality and ecologically clean products, this is the consequences of everything mentioned above. The microorganisms allow us to do that. And all the organic technologies, if they are done properly, that it will also save the environment and the ecology as it is. So, coming to the essence, I'd like to show this pyramid. This is the usual trophic or ecological pyramid. I think that you could see it even when you were students at school, but mostly it is shown without the lowest layer, the lowest part with microorganisms. Mostly they begin it with the plants as the main producers of organic substances, because the biomass of the plants is the biggest biomass of everything or every living organism on the Earth planet. So from the moisture, thanks to the photosynthesis, they produce organics, which is then consumed by the consumers of the first order. And then we have the higher line, and this pyramid is going on up and up there. But mostly we forget that under the plant, we have one more huge group of microorganisms, which have in fact their own trophic pyramid, because they have both the microorganisms which can produce the organic substance, the microorganisms which can feed on this substance, and those who can decay this substance, the organic substance which is created by the plants. It can be again decayed into the microorganisms and give back the plant an opportunity to feed on those elements. What's interesting in this pyramid, if you look from bottom to the top, the size of one organism is growing, is increasing, but the overall biomass of the organism groups is decreasing. So the biomass of the plants will be the biggest, the biomass of the microorganisms will take the second place, though there are certain details depending on how you consider algae and plants. And here I'd like to emphasize that the plants, as the producers, as the main source of nutrition, the main source of the organics we'd like to get, they totally depend on this basis. And the basis is the microorganisms living in the land. The next important point for any production, but for the organic production, it is very important, is the organic substance of the land and its destructors. Why is it so important in the organic technology? Because we're totally getting rid of the mineral nutrition. We've got only a nutrition which the microorganisms can provide to the plants only left. So one of the biggest sources is the organic substance which gets with the remnants of the plants and animals to the land. It is decomposed by the microorganisms to the simple elements, and then the microorganisms can take it again. But before it totally decomposes, it accumulates the organic substance, the organic mass in the land. So this organic mass is the place where the microorganisms exist. And this is the substance in the land which provides the support in the accessible state of all of the mineral elements. Because if the land doesn't have, it has the sand only, it doesn't have any nutrition, just the organics and the humus, they pile up and give away the mineral elements for nutrition. Which could be the sources of the mineral nutrition in the organic technology? If we speak about nitrogen, everything is okay with the nitrogen. It's there's a lot of it. There's plenty of it in the atmosphere, and they can fix it. The plant can give it to the. They can give it be given to the plants. So the healthy microflora of the plant, if it is diverse, it is not opposed by the mineral fertilizers, and that's what we can see in the organic technology. It will be totally providing the plant with nitrogen. And if we speak about other minerals which can be totally found in the land, this is phosphorus, but they are not that accessible. Potassium and phosphorus, we can have different sulfates of iron. They are bonded with calcium and silicate minerals. So this phosphorus is not accessible to the plants in the land. But restoring the microflora of the land, this phosphorus will be totally becoming free and will be totally accessible for the plants. As for potassium, we have the similar situation. It's rather numerous in the land, but after the processing of the fields, they were in the huge amounts, and the plant took, well, not everything from those fertilizers, but the phosphorus and potassium was bonded with the sulfides of the metals, and it was kept in the inaccessible way. So if we stop introducing those fertilizers to the land will have the situation of the lack of phosphorus and potassium, and the microorganisms are transforming this form into the more accessible way. The microorganisms which provide this transition of phosphorus and potassium are very numerous, because the microorganisms really need those elements as well. They do it constantly. The other question is that the mineral fertilizers just suppress this process of releasing of phosphorus and potassium. But if we get rid of the mineral fertilizers, the microorganisms are more active, providing the release of phosphorus and potassium. They release mineral acids and different elements which decompose sulfides in the land, and different components which can include phosphorus in the land, and they transform it into the bioaccessible form, the forms which are easy to be taken by the plant. It is done by different microorganisms, Bacillus megatherium, Bacillus amyloliquefaciens and subtilis and phosphaticum. Those are different bacteria which can be used. The huge amount of microflora is working in the land to have the high storage of accessible phosphorus and potassium. Coming to the biological protection of the plants or the control of the pests and pathogens, here we can have the evolution of the microorganisms, and they have developed of the mechanisms how the plant could stay healthy, because after the photosynthesis with the root system, with the land mass, it totally releases the sugars, which are the total source of nutrition for the microorganisms. So they're peacefully coexisting with the plants, and they want this plant to be healthy, for it to be strong, for it to produce and to provide photosynthesis and to feed those microorganisms with its sugars. For that, they got to know how to release antibiotic compositions, subtilins, mycobacillins, surfactants. This is the huge list, and fungicides like fungicin and surfactant, and a very big number of different combinations, because different combinations have different properties. They release hydrolytical ferments, amylases, proteases, chitinases, and they decompose the organic substance in the land, and they can also decompose the biomass of the pathogens in the land. And the organic acids, with the same aim, they are capable to stop the development of pathogens, they're capable to decompose their biomass, and this is how they control the dissemination of the causative agents. Amino acids, they don't affect negatively onto the causative agents and pathogenic agents, but the plants are happily taking amino acids which are produced by the microorganisms, and having those amino acids, the plant is feeling better, they have their own protection means, and with the help of that, the plant is much more resistant when it contacts with the pathogens. Which mechanisms of the pathogen control do we have? They can be formally divided into two groups.
Антагоністи патогенів, вони кількома шляхами.
Fungi and bacteria. They protect the plants in several ways. But if we look at the trichoderma, they have a very interesting mechanism. They are parasites. Because meeting in the land the pathogen of the fungi, the trichoderma is using it and eats it, devours it. So it's hyperparasites on this pathogen, and this is how it cleanses the land, decreasing the amount of the causative agents in the land. If we speak about the bacteria, antagonists, pathogens, here we can also have lots of mechanisms of interaction with the causative agents and pathogenic agents. But besides that, the bacterial and pathogens like Bacillus subtilis is one of the most well-known. They are capable to colonize the root system of the plant, and not only the root system, but the over the surface part, because Bacillus subtilis is mostly the epiphytic microorganism. I mean the one which is growing on the leaves and on the stem. This is where the plant is creating the comfortable conditions for the development of the useful microorganisms. Colonizing this place of existence, those microorganisms are not giving the opportunity for the pathogen to contact with the plant, but having colonized it, those microorganisms again are releasing the antibiotic combinations, and when the pathogen is contacting with them, it cannot develop, so it can be totally ruined, even in the distance from the plant where it contacted with the useful microorganisms. All of the mechanisms of the pathogen control are on this slide. Let us begin with the competition between the useful microorganisms and pathogenics for the environment of the existence. If we've got any field with their intensive technology where the useful microflora was perishing because of the big amount of mineral fertilizers and aggressive pesticides, in this field we can see much more quantitative causative agents, and the root system of the plant is developing in the unfavorable environment. But if we restore the microflora of the land, the root system of the so this it's not contacting with the causative agents. And then we have antibiosis. Those are the substances which are killing the pathogen, and then the useful microorganism can colonize this free ecosystem which got free from the pathogen. Microparasitism, that's what I was telling about trichoderma. It can not only release antibiotic combinations but also parasite on the biomass of the pathogen without harming the plant. And the gaining of the resistance is a very interesting mechanism. The plant cannot differ the contact with one microorganism from the contact with a different one, so the plant is always reacting the same. It is activating the systems of protection from the causative agents, so contacting with the useful microorganism, we are achieving a situation when the plant is getting ready to the contact with the pathogen. And if this contact is taking place, the plant will be ready to protect itself from it with its internal mechanisms to releasing the elements of oxygen, which oxidates the mycelium of pathogens, and so on.
І ендофіти теж дуже цікавий спосіб контролювати поширення хвороб, тому що
So this is a very interesting way to disseminate the diseases, because some of the microorganisms are getting into the fabric of those are endophytes, which are useful for the plants. They are located in the gaps, and here we can see the antibiotic combinations which protect the plant from within. The microbial protection from the pests, it can be divided into two big parts as well. The protection of the contact action and of the, like Bacillus thuringiensis, a very well-known combination. They are capable getting into the insect. They stop it in its nutrition because they release certain toxic elements which are activated only in the pest, the insect which is biting the leaves. So those microorganisms are totally safe for the useful insects. So when those microorganisms are in the insects, in several days it is just perishing, and they infect other pests and insects. Another way to protect from the pests is the contact way. Mostly it is provided by the useful microscopic fungi like Bolleria, Metarhizium. They are contacted with the surface of the body of the insect. They totally prick through their surface. They grow with their mycelium within its insect, and they totally feed on it. And you can see that the surface of this insect is totally grown with the spores of the fungi, and those spores are going to the environment, protecting the land from the pests which can be found there. This is the way how you can control the population of the surface pests closer to the root system and all over the organic field. Another mechanisms how the microorganisms can help the plants is biostimulation. In the evolution, with the help of the vertical transition of the genes, microorganisms got to know how to synthesize phytohormones, totally identical one which are synthesized by the plants to control their development. And the microorganisms provide them when they get to the plant. They want the plant to be developed in the more active way, for it to be bigger. So they allocate phytohormones to stimulate its root system, to stimulate the development of the on-surface mass. And this is how we will be able to stimulate the development of the plant. But to oppress the development of the plant with the help of the useful microorganism, it won't be able, because you won't be able to do that because they don't have those microorganisms. Those are non-synthetic combinations which could be used. No, it can't be restored. The microorganisms are stimulating the development of the plant, developing with it in its root system and on the surface of its over the surface parts. So, concluding everything, I'd like to mention several errors and mistakes which can be done by the agrarian who would like to have the organic technology. And because of those mistakes, he won't just understand what was wrong and will again have the same idea. First mistake, why do I have the agrochemical analysis of the land? But you should know what type of the land should be there. Do they have the phosphorus and potassium which is needed by the plant? Because you won't have another source. Or maybe the organic fertilizers, but unfortunately it's not that okay. And it's very sad with the organic fertilizer in Ukraine, because organic animal breeding is just a dream for the future. Secondly, why do I need the consultation of an expert? I know it all. Well, of course, there are some experts and agrarians who know this issue very well, who've studied a lot and have prepared the scheme of the transition to the organic production, but also there are certain agrarians who would like to deal with the organic production, but they were dealing with the intense technologies only, and they consider that organic farming is just getting rid of the chemical pesticides. No, unfortunately, it's not true. So it's much better to consult with some regional specialist from the council or from the union who will tell you how to have the proper transition to the organics, not to have any critical mistakes. Why do we introduce bio drugs? Because there are microorganisms in the environment. True, they are there and they will be there as well, even when there are no people left on the planet. But still, if we speak about the transition from the intensive technology to the organic one, the fields which were under the intensive technology, they have a very exhausted and changed microflora of the land. And this microflora will not be restored on its own. So for this field to be in the organic technology in a proper way, you will still need to do something with it. What exactly? To use the specially chosen biological medicines. It's too expensive. I can buy cheaper. Well, the organic technology needs certain expenses. You will need to spend money for the high quality seeds. You will need a special expensive equipment, and it concerns any element of organic production. The organic technology will provide the financial profit if you invest into the proper and high quality elements of this technology. I will process later because everything is not that bad so far. Well, I mean process from the disease and from the pests with the biological drugs. Well, the problem is that the biological drugs don't have this instantaneous action like the medical ones. You need to process the plants beforehand to prevent the disease. If you introduce them when the disease is already flourishing on the plant, or you have the dissemination of the pest, then before they act, before the microorganisms develop and release all the biochemical combinations which are needed to stop the disease or the pest, there will be too much of time passing and you can lose your yield. So you should be very attentive towards the technology. And why do I need the guidelines given by the producer? I've done everything in my own way and it was working. The producer is trying to provide you with the proper guidelines, not to harm with the elements of the technology which you would like to use, and for them to work as efficient as possible. You shouldn't exceed the norms of the drugs you'd like to use. You shouldn't decrease them unsubstantially, because you need to have a request and the consultation from the producer, and to get the consultation how it can be done properly and efficiently. Well, 20 minutes is not enough. I'm already late with my time. I do apologize for that. If there are any questions, I will be happily answering them, maybe now, maybe later. If you've got any questions left, please come to the expert center to us. We will be happily consulting the organic producers because it's one of the missions of our company, and we always want the organic production in Ukraine and abroad to be flourishing and gradually take the biggest territories possible, providing us with healthy and high quality products. Thank you. Thank you, Volodymyr. I will show your poll now, and I would like to say that there are questions to you from Mikola. How can I fight with the social seeding farming? Sorry, which one? What was the question? Oh, sorry, not social, of course. So, as for now, in their organic technology, the only way to fight all the necessary and harmful plants, they don't have a single organic herbicides which would control the necessary harmful plants in the thorough seeding. But the issue is very interesting issue, and it is, in fact, as for the counteracting of the weeds, the BTU Center is also trying to develop the organic herbicides which would be safe for the environment, but would allow us to get rid of this issue because it's a huge issue for the organic technology. Thank you for the answer. So in fact, there are no more questions left, but I do remind you, if you've got any questions, please write them in the comments. We will name them, and Volodymyr will definitely provide you with an answer. Now we are finalizing our poll. Just wait several seconds for the participants to vote who haven't done that.
З'явилось ще одне питаннячко, я швиденько дам на нього відповідь. Чи поєднуються в баковій суміші триходерма і бацилюс субтиліс?
I can see one more question, whether in the combination trichoderma and bacillus subtilis can be combined. Well, mostly bacillus subtilis is oppressing trichoderma development, so you shouldn't combine different strains from different producers. But if the producer is recommending the drug, because here we have both bacillus, subtilis, and trichoderma, we check those strains, that they are compatible, that they are not oppressing each other, and they're working together. So you shouldn't combine the products of different producers. But if one product includes two strains, it mostly should work. Thank you for the answer. So let us I will read the question from the foreign participants. Which element of the organic elements do you have most of all problems? The protection from the diseases, from the pests, nutrition, and protection from the weeds. This was the question. We are waiting for one more second, then we finalize the results of the poll. Volodymyr, here are the results. We're looking at the results now, so it's totally expected. We knew that the answers will be like this, because really the protection from the weeds and the organic technology, as for now, is one of the biggest issues. And we are working to solve this issue. We do hope that rather soon we'll present the new one. Thank you for your comment. Then I'm appealing for the participants. You can write your comments or your proposals and the questions. And let us move on to the next speaker of ours. Yulia Mironova is here. Yulia. Hello, everyone. Today, I will tell you how we should properly grow the organic field crops and to have the transition from the integrated farming to the organic ones with the minimal losses in the indicators of yield and the quality of the products. I will tell you instantly that to grow organic crops is much more complicated and harder than according to the traditional technology, as this technology is much more needing science, and you need to think through every element of the technology beforehand. There won't be such an opportunity to work quickly and to solve this problem It's totally different mechanisms of growing of the agents. But it is possible. The progress is not at the same place. The company of BTU Center is working for a long time to implement innovations. And I will tell you instantly that the organic technology is worth it. Because our land is the legacy from our parents.
Сказати, у своїх дітей, і заради майбутнього ми
We took it as a loan for our children, and for the sake of the future, we need to take care about the health of the Ukrainian land and the health of all of us. The company of BTU Center is for 22 years is working on the creation of microbial drugs to protect and provide nutrition for the plants, and is environmentally clean. They don't pollute the environment, and they allow us to preserve Ukrainian land. As of today, 57 agents have the organic certification according to the organic standard. And we are the only producer in Ukraine which is acknowledged by the International Association of Biological Agents in Switzerland. And also we are cooperating with the Research Institute of Organic Agriculture in Switzerland. We're working with 121 organic farm in Ukraine. And if we calculate it, approximately it's 100,000 hectares which are processed by our drugs. And also we have a very huge staff of professionals and consultants, 24 experts of our company are the consultants on organic farming. And also we have the experts of narrow profile, which allow us to respond all of the issues of our clients and customers. Those are pathologists, entomologists, agrochemists who can help each and every person with any problem which can emerge in the farm. We always provide the expert counseling to the customers, and we don't sell the agent just to sell, because in each of the package you can see a huge number of information which is needed for the person to use this drug properly and not to have the problem with the pests, diseases, nutrition. And also our company has created the loyalty program for the organic farms to support the organic producer. And according to this loyalty program, each producer, in spite of the number of the years of the work, has the discount of 7% for our preparations, free delivery, and the opportunity to provide the analysis of the land or the seeds in our Institute of Applied Biotechnology. It's really important. Why? I will tell a bit later why we need this analysis exactly. And also, with the years of this cooperation, we have the increase of the discount and the conditions of the payment are changing.
років знижка може навіть до 10% зростати. На сьогодні ми працюємо з дуже великими такими органічними...
As of today, we are working with the bigger organic farms and corporations. This is like Alex Agro, Field, Pole, AgroTrade, Tess Agro, Ukraland Farming, AgroStarta, and Vitagro, and lots of others. And then I will speak about the technology. What stops the producers who are growing the plants with the traditional technology from the transition to the organic one? Those are two factors like low yield and the low quality of the organic products. Why it happens? Most of all, it happens because the farm which has the transition to the organic technology is not while thinking about the technology itself. So to grow the plants with organic technology, you need to take into account a huge number of factors. I will tell you about them later. And we will speak, first of all, about the quality of the products themselves. A huge issue is that the organic products, the consumers, consider to be dangerous. I can see rather often and hear the words about the organic products that it's scary to eat that, because people think that the organic products is growing on its own when the person is waiting for the yield. Then it is added with different pathogens. Those pathogens can release lots of mycotoxins, which can negatively impact the health of the people. So that is why this product is considered to be dangerous. This is a huge factor which interferes to the development of the organic sector. But there is a way out. The company of BTU Center has a huge spectrum of preparations which will allow to reduce this risk and to make the organic products healthy and not to pile up different pathogens in different plants. Then I will speak about the proper protection of the plants from those diseases which can impact the quality of the products. First rule is the best protection is the prevention. It's much easier not to allow the infection of the pathogen and to use the prevention preparation. Every causative agent and pathogenic agent has the cycle of the development, so the infection can happen with this pathogen. I will show you later how it looks. As for now, I will tell about the prevention as it is. Because when you have stains on the plants, then the agent is already on the plant, and it's not that easy to fight with it. When you can see the stain, you've lost the part of the harvest, of the yield. And also you need to provide the phytopathological analysis of the land and the seed. You cannot do that in any technology, organic or integrated. You should always pay attention to what's happening on the field, both on the land and in the seeds, because the majority of the pathogens are coming from there. And also you need to keep to the changes of the seeding, because it will provide you with the decrease of the load onto your seeding. This would be the convertible plant succession. And then the systematic approach to the protection from the diseases, and also the systematic approach, which means that you need to take into account all of the factors, both the seeds and the protection during the vegetation. The next point is the balanced nutrition. If the plant is properly fed, if it has lots of nutrients for itself, then it is resistant against the pathogenic agent and is not that infected. If it is overfed, especially when you have lots of nitrogen, it is growing quicker and it can be infected more. The seventh point is the timely killing of the pests and harmful insects. Why it impacts the process? Because they totally harm the plants and decrease their resistance to the causative agents, and those agents of virus and bacterial diseases can get into the plant, and it will be very hard to fight them. The 8th point is the use of biostickers to improve the efficiency of fungicides. This is a very important point because it allows to prolong the action of the preparation and to provide it not to be washed off the leaf, even if it's raining. And there are some biostickers which improve the insecticide. I will speak about that later, when we will speak about the protection from the pests. The 9th point is the knowledge of the peculiarities of the development of harmful organism, because if you know the adversary, you know how it is developed, you know how you can protect the plant properly, and when you should introduce the fungicide to provide the protection. And the last point is the optimal conditions for the storage of the products. This is how you can grow the healthy crops instead of toxins and pathogens. But when you bring it to the humid conditions of the warehouse, it can create the pathogenic saprophytes. What are the stages to protect from the diseases? The first stage is the land, the second is the seed, and also vegetation. At each of those stages, I will speak later. And in each of those stages, you need to choose another type of protection. So everything begins with the land itself. As I already said, this is the main factor where you can accumulate pathogens. So here I divided it into biocenosis, like the healthy one and the wrong one. So when you have the transition from the previous technology, it is unfortunately failing because you've got much more pathogens than the useful microorganisms. You have the much more saprophytes and the decomposition, so which can harm the plants. There are no entomopathogenic fungi, which can totally be affected by the insects. And there are lots of microorganisms with nitrogen fixators and phosphorus mobilizers, and also when there are much more microorganisms of a certain species. Mostly, those are saprophytes because those microorganisms are capable to provide substrate and to decompose the remnants, and they can easily adapt in comparison with the useful species. In the organic field, if it is organic for a long time, the biocenosis is equalizing to the proper structure, but sometimes it needs to be adjusted. And for that, there are certain special preparations like ecostone to improve the number of bacteria and fungi, antagonists, like ground fix, which would improve the fixators and phosphorus mobilizers, and also sclericide, which will decrease the number of pathogens in the land, especially if you know some pathogenic agents. This preparation, the most important to decrease the number of these pathogenic agents. And also we have organic balance, the destructor, which improves the health of the ground. So let us speak about the protection during the vegetation. Here, we should always look at the pathogenic agents which are widely disseminated. First of all, we need to look at the seeds. In the end, we can find out the pathogenic agents, and then we can find the proper protection, knowing the agent. Then we need to follow the phytosanitary state of the sieve and also to provide the protection. I will speak about BTU Center company, which has the proper experts who can come to your field, take the samples of the plants, or tell you at the field what that disease is and which preparation can help. So don't be shy, make a call. We are always in touch with you and we can always help you. The consultation is free. Which fungicide can be selected? The selection of the fungicide depends on the causative agent in your crops. If those are fungi, then the majority of fungicides is working against them, but they have different efficiency against each of the types. The first fungicides of BTU Center company is phytocide, which is created to fight with the agents of fungi, and also it depends. It also is working in the prevention. The next is mycohelp, which is done with the root and fruit rot cases, but also it oppresses the development of other diseases. The next fungicide is phytohelp. This fungicide is selected specially for the prevention and depression of the development of bacterial pathogenic agents, but it impacts the fungicides as well. And the last fungicide is scleroside. Its main work is prevention of the white rot, but in the research, we also got the results that it stops all of the pathogenic agents, the white rot and the gray rot, which you can see in your crops. So the types of the introduction also depends on the place where the causative agent is located. You can see some of the results of the efficiency of our fungicide scleroside. We are researching it since 2018 in different Ukrainian regions, and it shows a very efficient result. The next insecticide type and block is insecticide protection from the pests. It also differs depending on the pest. The first insecticide, which is in the BTU Center company, is Metawite. This is the preparation created to fight with the pests which are underground. This could be different insects, but it also impacts the insects which spend their winter in the land. So if you introduce it in autumn, you can fight a very wide spectrum of pests, or at least you can decrease their number and the burden for the crops. Some other insecticides provide the vegetation like Actoworm formula, lepidoside, and betoxybacillinus. They are all created thanks to the cells of the bacteria Bacillus thuringiensis and also biologically active products of bacteria. All of those are different states, so there is a certain difference between them. For instance, lepidocidus is working against the certain type of the insects, but it has the concentration of 1 and 10 in the 9th, so it should be not that numerous. So Lepidopterus and other types of insects can be used as well. Here you can see the research of the efficiency of the insecticide Actoworm formula. Would you please drive your attention that every time we've added the biosticofrilipan. This is an important factor which improves the efficiency of all of our bacterial preparations, insecticides. The last block in my presentation is the nutrition of the plants. All of you know that in the agricultural plants, there is the need of the proper nutrition. The proper yield can be got only when you have the proper nutrition. So you need to pay attention to that. Some of the crops have their own needs, and this is how you can calculate the nutrition for each of the crops. All of the preparations for nutrition can be divided into the preparations which include the microelements themselves and those which can improve the nutrition. Those are the preparations which include microelements. This is our line HelpRost, and they are accessible for the nutrition of the crops. In each of the HelpRosts, they are selected for each of the crops. We have HelpRost for the grains and for the beans and for the seeds. All of them are balanced and selected for the certain crop. The next group of the preparations is the microbial preparations which improve the nutrition. For instance, ground fix, which I mentioned above, this is the biofertilizer which is created to mobilize phosphorus and potassium from the non-soluble combinations and to fix nitrogen. So if you create the chemical analysis of the land, you can see that the ground includes different combinations which can be accessible or non-accessible for the plants. Rather often, our grounds are very fruitful, and they include lots of non-soluble combinations. So those preparations change the situation and make it accessible. The next preparation is MicoFriend, which is created for the protection of the plants. It includes mycorrhiza creating fungi and also the efficiency of mycorrhization. Then we have organic balance. This is the universal biopreparation for the stressful situations of the plants. Organic balance monophosphorus is created for the phosphorus nutrition of the plants and also growth and development and prevention of the diseases. And the last preparation is azotophyte, which is created for the nitrogen fixing and which is a very efficient stimulator of the growth. And the bacteria which are included there stimulate the development of the plants thanks to the release of the hormones and phytoacids. The next group is inoculants. You know how important it is for the dipper crops. Our company has 4 types of those inoculants, both liquid and it depends what opportunity you have for the development with the preparation. If it is done with the turf, with the peat, and also we have the inoculant with the protector, which allows to have up to 7 days before the crops seeding. And also we have Andoris, which is an interesting inoculant, which has not only symbiotic bacteria and phosphorus mobilizing fungi Penicillium belli, which improves the ways of nutrition. The next group of such preparations for nutrition is humates. We've got 2 of them. One of them is to improve the nutrition of the plants. The other one is to stimulate the development. and to take the plant out of the stress. Another topic, that the only possible way for the stable and high yield is the systematic approach. All of those 4 points which I mentioned above, the land, the protection from the diseases, the proper nutrition, and the pest protection, they are equal. So if you lose one of the components, you can have some problem. But if all of the 4 elements are properly developed, then everything will be okay. The BTU Center company has developed, depending on the farm, some separate technological systems of the use of bio preparations. Here you can see the overall system where all of the preparations are there. But if you come to us, we will develop the necessary scheme for your farm with the opportunity to introduce, depending on the available situation in the field, depending on the analysis of the crops and the seeds, the preparations which would suit you. That's it from me, and thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, I left my phone number here, you can call me. Thank you, Yulia, for such a cool speech. Now we have the survey so far. Volodymyr, would you answer the questions, and Yulia as well? In the comments, we can see several questions. For instance, you've answered some of them. Are there the consultants in your staff which are the specialists on the plant growing in the protected ground? Yes, sure. You will be able today to get acquainted with our expert who is working in the vegetable growing of the open and closed ground. He will tell about the growing of the vegetables, organic ones. The last question, can we combine help roast with humic or not? Yes, we can combine them. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Then I remind you that if you've got any questions, please write them in the comments and our speakers will definitely answer them. We are waiting for 1 more second to finalize the survey for me to show the results, and then we'll move on to the next speaker. Just 1 minute. And I would ask Yulia then to comment on the outcomes of this survey. 1 moment. We are finalizing the survey and I show you the results. Yulia, how would you comment on that? Well, such results really make me happy because I totally agree with those who voted, because sidral cultures are really so important for the organic production, the crops which allow us to improve the quality and the yield of the products. Yulia, thank you so much for your answer, but we need to move on to the next speaker. Mr. Volodymyr, please, the floor is yours. Hello, all of the participants, whoever has joined us. It will be very easy for me to provide my presentation after the previous speeches, after Volodymyr and Yulia, because they have shown the essence of the work of biopreparations, and I will dwell upon the peculiarities of the use of multi-year biocenosis in the garden and organic garden of our biopreparations. And of course, it's not the secret, but just it's the trend, it's the clever choice to have the transition to the organic production, including the garden. The demand of the garden products is growing in the world, not only in Ukraine, but unfortunately in Ukraine so far for the export only in the gardenery, but still some of them are left for the consumption by the population in Ukraine. When we communicate with the producers of non-organic products, we find out that there are several complications they meet Well, of course, the first thing is that the garden is the multi-year biosynosis. Those are not field crops or vegetables. This is the multi-year biosynosis where you can collect their useful microflora and their natural enemies of the plants, the pests and the diseases. So the task of the biological preparations to move the scales to the useful microflora. This monocultural character, the quarter of strawberries, the quarter of any berries, this character leads to the accumulation of infections, pests, and the quick dissemination, especially if you lack the protective measures. It would be very easy to compare it with the current pandemic, the dissemination of coronavirus. This is the same when the trolley bus is full of people. The quarter of the garden can also do it very quickly. The company of BTU Center, taking into account the experience of smaller producers, in its arsenal, it's accumulated such tools to regulate biosinosis in the garden, which can lead to the working programs. Well, you can see them on the slide. The land, the alive drop, the protection, nutrition, stimulation of root genesis, and others. Each of the programs foresees the full spectrum, like the protect and nutrition of the biological preparation, or the use of the combination of one or two biological preparations to solve a certain issue. Well, of course, this is not the main thing. I will not speak about that. Julia has told about that a lot. This is the proper work for the lands and grounds, especially for the multi-year gardenery. And it's so important to have the organic plantations without the multi-year weeds and land pests, which are very difficult to fight with, especially the first point, multi-year weeds, and of course the healthening and sanitation of the lands, thanks to the agrochemical and phytosanitary, which Volodymyr has meant, phytosanitary research of the land, which is not that done when you prepare the land. It should be done as the healthening of the land, of the ground, so the pathogenic availability, the choice of the preparations will depend on the pathogens availability. So the program of the fruitful land will foresee the use of the MicoHelp, the fungicide, and if this field is already doesn't have any of the remnants, you just provide ground fix. If there are some of the remnants of the plants, you provide either the organic balance destructor or EcoStir. MicoHelp healthens the land, and other ones, they optimize the processes of the root nutrition. HumiFriend, which was mentioned in the questions even, this is our novelty. It is compatible with all of the preparations which are produced by the companies. This is the humate, which has a unique ingredient. It's not only the potassium humate as we understand it in other cases. Here we have potassium acids and humine acids, amino acids, macro and micro elements. I will not read them out loud to save some time. We have lots of spores of microorganisms which provide different functions: phosphorus mobilization, fungicide action, this growth stimulation. So this is a very rich choice which allows us to provide the proper development of the work on the leaf, and I will speak about that later. With all of the preparations of the company, HumiFriend is totally compatible. When you plant the garden or the berries, you need to take care of the creation of the optimal conditions around the root system. The multi-year plant needs a permanent care. As it said, intensive garden needs intensive care, moreover, organic one. When you wash them, when you need to decontaminate them, when you need to nutrient them, there are certain recommended norms, there are proper terms and times, period times, and we need to stick to all of that. The program of Live Drop is the continuation of the previous program, but in the existing crops, fruit crops. The usual garden, which has the drop washing, well, it has the irrigation, and it is done in several periods, in several times, mostly the beginning of the vegetation, where we provide the Miko help and ground fix together with the human friend in the dosages which you can see on the screen. The second part of vegetation, we provide Miko help and HumiFriend, and in the end of the vegetation, we give a drop of EcoStone. EcoStone will help the decomposition of the plant remnants, which were totally dead, and the root system and the leaves. Well, EcoStone can help that, and also will provide the decontamination and mobilization of the nutrition. If you don't have this proper irrigation in drops, we still recommend you to add it in any case, especially if you wash the younger plants. Berries cannot be grown during such a unstable irrigation, so those elements need to get to the land in the recommended dosages. There are no concentrations there. It is introduced with the washing norm of water. The only thing I'd like to drive your attention to, the land should be either humified, or you should put 10 to 15 of the norm with the clear water. 70 to 75% is done with the preparation, and 10 to 15% with the clean water again to wash through the system, through the bacterial preparation, which is also given from the surface of the land, because the direct sunlight and the overheating can ruin the useful macroflora. Well, of course, we provide the sanitary monitoring. And according to this phytosanitary monitoring, those norms can be recommended and changed. The technological discipline, this is the term which I first heard in Poland, in Europe. This means the totally compliance to the necessary terms of the introduction of the preparations. And especially it's important during the transition, because it's not only about the land, it's about the crops, how it's done with the fields and with the vegetables. It's done together with the crops and plants which are already growing. Especially during the transition and during the organic production, it's very important to stick to the calendar according to the phenological phase of the introduction of biological preparations. Such technological maps is the development of our company. They are developed, in fact, for each of the groups of crops, seeds, and also any of the woods and blackberry and blueberry. And we also do that for the flowers and for the medicine plants. And this map visualizes and provides the pictures of the phenological phase. So even if the owner of the farm, not agronomist, but the financier or the mechanic, can see the picture and will understand which phenological phase this plant is at, the name of the phase, the list of the harmful organisms which can be found on these plants, the pests and the diseases, and the main thing, the back mixture and the mixture for the fertigation. Over there there should be the sticker for sure. In the spraying mixture, in the tank mixture, we don't recommend you to use milk, and you read it in the chat. But if you use the sticker of some different company with the BTU companies, please, would you choose it for the compatibility of the tank mixture? It is done very simply. You take the glass jar, the proportionate amount of the preparations, and 10 to 15 minutes with the water you will be using for the tank mixture. So you're just providing the test for the compatibility. It's a non-lab, very simple and practical test. If you introduce, together with our preparations, some other preparations of other companies, you should use this test as well. So it should introduce fungicides, insecticides, the nutrition means, and humifriend, which I mentioned above. As for fertigation, we introduced different ones. You can see Metawipe, which I will mention later, to fight certain organisms. As for some of the precise facts, it is reflected in the calendar plan. The calendar plan is the working table document which reflects the preparations, the number, and the term when you have to introduce them. Don't take this calendar plan as the foundation for the work, because we correct and adjust it constantly. It was done for the previous year. This year we'll have the new ones as well as the technological practices. If you have the technological maps of BTU Center Company of the last year, come to us, we need to send you the new ones. We develop all of the calendar plans to the technological maps, which we develop for 5 or 6 sprays, and then we correct them. And of course, the crops, the fruit crops, should be created if those are berries. But if this is the garden, we need to look at the moisture and nutrients. If you use the berries, I would recommend you, and it is proved by the practice, to introduce 2 drops, especially on the raspberry and blueberry, 2 drops of irrigation. As for mycorrhization, it's a very fashionable term and notion, which is very efficient. In the arsenal of the company, we have the preparation of MycoFriend, 2 preparations, MycoFriends, but in the gardenery, we are using MycoFriend. It's working much better, which, thanks to the availability of fungi and bacteria like Trichoderma, Bacillus subtilis, and Enterobacter, Bacillus mucilaginosus, they create in the layer, after healthing it, they create the optimal conditions for the development of the fungi. 2 types of fungi, glomus, which don't create the body, but they create the whole combinated fungicide, which is on the surface of the root system and get into the root system. And thanks to the symbiosis of the root system and the fungus of glomus, they create the whole mushroom spawn and conditions for the growth of the plants. We would recommend to use MycoFriend, that is to provide mycorrhization of the root system of the blueberry or the blackberry, and then grapes, different nuts, and other crops are really responding mycorrhization. We do recommend it as well, but for those crops, it is compulsory, especially in the organic production. Mycorrhiza, the fungi, using the root system as the apartment for living, when they have the stressful minute, where there is a stressful factor, they help the plant to survive, giving its moisture. Those are the examples on the blueberry, you can see that in the sample option, well, you can see that we can see the cover of the root. This is already the beginning of the mushroom spawn, but still, when you introduce MicaFriend, we can see the bigger mushroom spawn. For the 35th day, you can see the branches already in this spawn, so it's really favorable for the development of the plants. Especially, I will emphasize that there are some stressful factors, whether it's a drought or some action of the herbicides, if they are exhausted, or when we have irrigation, the mycorrhiza can help the plant to survive. Meta-white, I will tell about details. When we use meta-white, it's really harmful by the bacteria of different plants and insects. So against them, meta-white is working against the pests like chafers or maybugs and bacillus to strengthen thuringiensis to strengthen this work of this preparation of those two fungi. So this preparation, that's what it does with the pests, with the chafers and maybugs. The only restriction, meta-white doesn't have a stop effect, as well as different insecticides. The biological action against the harmful organism is working on the 20th or 30th day in meta-white. In bioinsecticide, which we introduce along the leaf, is the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th day.
Тому пам'ятайте це. Вони не діють так, як хімічні аналоги їхні.
They are not acting like their chemical equivalents. It's very easy. When they come to the chitin cover, the fungi is growing in, they ruin the bacteria. First, they lose their mood, then the appetite, then they totally decompose. So, of course, in our life hacks, we've mentioned a very reliable partnership. I always mention it in the end, but I always speak about that. First of all, reliable partnership, what it foresees, especially in the organic production. Yes, the company of BTU Cento is producing the high quality preparations. So lots of the agronomes are sure in that, and it is also supported by lots of the companies in the independent institutions which are done secretly from us, and then they present just the outcomes, the results. But the success is 50-50. If we have the high quality preparation, which is not introduced or introduced with a not a proper quality, or if you lose the temperature mode of the storage, the question whether you can do that after the rain, yes, you can do that. And then you can do that with a sticker because it will provide the proper effect. So 50% of success of the use depends on the production, the economic entity, the farm, and of course the success. We are happy to see the success at the production because we can see that this is the part of our work as well, of our company. So I thank you all for your attention. I do wish you strong health, successful season, for you to have successful yields and sales, and to taste them without any frights, because you grew that product, as it was yesterday told by the farmer, who is, by the way, from non-organic production. He is planning to have this transition, but still, he told me, but I need to look in the eyes of my neighbors as well. Thank you, Volodymyr. Are there any questions? And yes, I wanted to show the survey now, and then we'll look at the results, and then would you comment on the outcomes? So all of the participants, would you vote The question is whether you have enough of information about the plant growing according to the organic technology. Yes, sometimes there can be certain questions which don't have the answer. And the third option is no. So we're waiting for several seconds and showing the results. So far, Volodymyr, would you comment on the questions? Maybe we've got some new questions. Yes, there is the question, the technological maps. As for the technological maps, we are providing them to all of those who would like to get them, whoever is coming to us. I think that very soon we have the updated maps. We will present them and post them at the website for the main crops. And of course, the PDF format will be there. I've already answered that. They will be the website. What's the economic threshold of the harm for the larva of chaff? Well, I don't know if Andrei Kryzhenevsky is here, but I will tell you that the threshold of harm when we research the area, if it is higher than 0.5 for the chaff, for the maybug, for the square meter, it should be disinfected from the maybug. Thank you so much for your answer. So we have the voting. I'm showing the outcomes. Would you comment whether you expected such the results or not? Just a couple of words. Yes, in a couple of words. Okay, yes, I was expecting for such an answer. The only thing what I can tell you that we are open for the communication, and those no, 6 people who answered no, I would like to detailize whether you came for help and you could not get help, or you never came for help and you didn't have any information. This would be the one which I'd like to clarify. So far, we are providing all of the information. We are open for the communication. The only thing what I always say, and I will repeat now, I am not the consultant on the preparations of other companies, because very often people are coming to me and ask me, and I can say instantly, we are speaking only about the BTU Center technologies and preparations. Thank you, Volodymyr. I remind you that you can pose the questions in the comments. Volodymyr, if there are any questions for you, would you answer in writing? And also, I'd like to give the floor to Sergei Vdovenko. Please get ready to your presentation. But I'd like to remind you that now we are conducting the competition from the BTU Center. The conditions of the competition: to subscribe the pages of BTU Center in Facebook and also Organic Ukraine, and also to post a comment with the signature, "I love organic production." And you can write the comment till 12:30, and then we stop commenting. And in the end of the Congress, we will say who the winners are. Sergey, hello. Yes, hello, dear participants of the Organic Congress. Hello, our main speakers. Well, really, the issue of organic vegetables is very relevant now, not only for the population of Ukraine, but also for the population of the whole planet of Earth. There are more and more questions: what we consume, which products are cleaner as for their quality or ingredients, and of course, it always excites and worries the agrarians what we can do to provide our population with a high quality and clean, environmentally clean products. But before that, I'd like to drive your attention that in Ukraine, the organic vegetables is really actively developing, and there are certain success. We create certain specialized farms, which unfortunately used to be were decaying because of the split of the Soviet Union, but now they restore their strength and they get more and more strength and capacity. And the statistical data witnesses about the same, because the population of Ukraine, they consume 161 kilo of vegetables a year, and they totally satisfy the program of the provision of the population with the products in this sphere. But I need to mention that there are certain problems in the vegetable growing, including the organic one. This is the specialty of the farms according to the climate zone of Ukraine. This is the certification of the production, the use of the advantages of the world globalization, cooperation, the development of the logistics, the use of the science achievements, and also we pay a lot of attention to the marketing, taking into account that we need to inform the producers about those programs. Those are webinars and also roundtables, and also I would like to add that the BTU Center company works a lot to provide those achievements of science and technology and to implement the leading experience and to make the producers and the consumers informed about our success, about the achievements which we have. Those achievements are done through the measures which we have, the roundtables, personal meetings, webinars, and so on. And also, we provide a daily thorough work. We sample the analysis of the ground in different farms. We provide the consultations. We develop technological maps, which were mentioned by the previous speaker, which we can provide in the rules of the agrotech. So this vegetable growing can be divided into 3 technologies. That is the technology of the intensive growing, where we use the crop protection agents of chemical origin, adapted technologies, which take into account some sort or some consumer, and of course the technology of. And I'd like to approve that more and more farms have the transition process with the intensive technology to the technology of organic vegetable growing. What do they base upon? The preparation of the land, because the successful case will depend on that as well. Then one of the elements of the preparation of the land, we do recommend the use of one of the preparations like EcoStern, because it provides the decomposition of the remnants of the plates. They decrease the toxicity of the land, the biological control of the pathogens, they improve the structure of the land, and of course they increase the yields. Our research and our experts have proved that the use of such a preparation should be done during the main processing of the land before you collect the predecessor. So you spray, then you provide the main processing of the land, and then at the next season, during the next year, the plant remnants are totally decomposing, which is the positive fact for the successful growing. In the Western Ukraine, we have conducted the research with the use of this preparation and the use of the biological control in the protection from the diseases when we grew potatoes. What it gave us? It gave us the approval that our EcoStone is the wonderful preparation which is well coping with the root remnants or plant remnants, which finally helped to increase the yield of the potatoes and to improve the goods indicators. In the process of the growing of the plants in the open lands and the protected lands, the plants are very often under stressful factors. This could be connected with the decrease of the temperature, the increase or insubstantial moisture in the air or in the land, lighting, and so on. So the plant can be in stress. So to help the plant to get out of this stress, or vice versa, to foresee it, to provide the sustainability against the stressful situation, the company has developed the use in the tank mixture the three preparations of stop stress program. That is that we are using such preparations as organic balance for the vegetation, azotophyte, and the liposan. Such program has shown its efficiency because the plants were already accustomed to the possible stresses, especially in the glass houses, where they don't have the over the surface and under the surface heating. So the plant during the early spring can unfortunately be exposed to the frost. So that is why this program is so important for the plants which like warmth and heat. So it's proved its efficiency because the yield has increased substantially. There have been the improvement of the goods indicators, and what's the most important, the availability of the certain nutrients or the products of the bacteria have provided the shaping of the additional part of the main stem and the increase of the number of fruits at each of the parts of the tomatoes. Altogether at each of the swags, but still we understand that when we grow after the predecessors, we form the yielding and filling on those elements, not to use mineral elements. The company has developed the program of the land, which takes into account the use of ground fix and azotophyte. They will provide, or they are providing, the increase of phosphorus and potassium. So they make it more accessible for the root system, and the use of nitrogen fixing from the air and bringing it to the plant itself. In the end of the day, it will improve the growing process and help the formation of the high quality and better yield. Simultaneously, we can see that during the last period, our climate is not that typical. It is changing, increasing the temperatures, and we don't have that much of the rains which are necessary for the vegetables. That is why the vegetable growers more and more are coming to the use of the drop irrigation or fertigation or the use of raining. In case of when we use drop irrigation, the use of certain preparations in the irrigation water can help the growing process of the plant. We increase the root system, the vegetation system, and all of that will provide the end yield. The use of such program, Live Drop, which takes into account the use of the ground fix with MicoHelp or organic balance destructor with MicoHelp, can substantially improve the agrochemical properties of the land and also the ingredients and the activity of the useful microflora, which is also a very positive effect. Such programs or above-mentioned programs of Live Drop, we've chosen them and tested them when we grew tomatoes, onions, cabbages in the open ground. What it led us to? Well, we can now say that those programs can substantially increase the yield. But altogether, we, the vegetable growers, are interested in the quality of the products. So we found out that such programs are increasing the contents of the biochemical substances in our products. So from the economic point of view, it provides additional revenue. Well, of course, you can see that this revenue in different crops is totally different, but still it leads to certain results. Besides the use of the above-mentioned preparations, our line of products has other preparations which can be used, like the additional nutrition along the leaf with the spraying. We've developed the product line of help roast vegetables, which include microelements in gelatin form, which can be easily consumed by the plants, and it helps and activates the growing processes. They increase the biometrical indicators of the crops during the early stages and also during the stage when we have the formation of the yield, and the overall yield is again increased. So we can easily and should see that during the period of the plant growing, we should use help roast vegetables or organic balance for the improvement of the growing processes of the plants and to provide high quality products for our consumers. Vegetable growing is a very specific branch in the agriculture because the majority of vegetables are grown with the help of the sprouts, and during the seedlings and sprouts we need to pay attention for our plant to be healthy and adapted to the conditions of the environment. Rather often the farmers don't pay attention to that. They consider that in the open land the use of any specific preparations can already provide the successful growth. We paid attention that in fact there are no recommendations about the use of biopreparations during the seeding period. When the plant is beginning its life cycle, during this period you need to provide it with the certain combinations for it to reflect sustainability and resistance against harmful objects or the environment when we grow it in the open or closed ground. And the professionals and the experts of our company have developed recommendations which include the period of the preparation of the mixture for the use of one preparation or another, the period of the seed processing with some of the preparations, and also during the formation of the first, the third, and the fifth leaves during the seedling. And this processing can be used along the leaf and also to the nutrition of the root system. The next element, which is so important during the seedling or for the vegetation, is the use of mycorrhization. My colleagues have already professionally told about the efficiency of this way or this element of the technology, and I would like to mention certain recommendations of ours as well, which we achieved in the process of our developments. Well, altogether, mycorrhiza means, if we speak about Latin, myco is the mushroom, the fungi, and from Greek, rhiza is the root. In other words, we form at the root system some other organisms which in the symbiosis can work with the plant, hosting plant, and this symbiosis is positive both for the organisms and the plant itself. In the line of our products, as it was mentioned by Volodymyr, we've got two preparations, Myco-Friend and Melano-Reese, and they are very acting and efficient. They increase the surface of the taking by the root system of all of the nutrients and moisture, and the Institute of Virusology and Microbiology have conducted the preliminary research about the efficiency, bacterial efficiency of the preparations for the phytogenic bacteria and phytogenic mycetes. And as you can see in this slide, this is a very high resistance of our preparation here. And this resistance and sustainability will be further on supported by our researchers. I'd like to remind the second preparation, Melano-Reese. It creates mycorrhiza as well. It is acting well as well and efficient. And this efficiency was mentioned of those two preparations when we grew sweet pepper in the glass house in one of the farms of Ukraine. There have been researched two sorts. We've used two schemes. I will not list them. What it led us to in the end of the day. In the process of the growth, we paid attention that the indicators of biometrics are different from the ones where we used the preparations. As for the sample plants, the diameter of the fruit and the growth of the plant was bigger, so they could form bigger number of generative limbs and the productive ones. And in the end of the day, the yield was much higher in comparison with the plants which were not working with the mycorrhiza preparations. And of course, we had to be sure that mycorrhiza is shaped and formed on the root system. And you can see during the fruit stage, you can see the mycelium, and one more approval that they are really successfully cooperating in the symbiosis with the vegetables. As it was already mentioned before by our experts, there have been developed certain recommendations about the comprehensive use of biopreparations as the technological maps which take into account all of the phases and stages of the development of the plant, the seed one and all the other stages, that is fruits and flowers, the beginning and the ending stage, and which stage of the development should be used, whether we recommend that at all. Especially it concerns along the leaf, beyond the root, nutrition and fertigation, of course, and also if there are any of the harmful objects, we recommend which objects you can use for these or those preparations. This is the efficiency of the complex use of the preparations which should be presented at this slide. In this case, this comprehensive system foresees the fall processing and Ecorstone introduction, which was mentioned above, ground fix plus Miko help, and during the vegetation, when the plant is grown in the open ground, in the phase of 5 and 6 leaves before the flourishing in the beginning and the mass fruits with the use of these or those preparations. What it led us to, first of all, we began to see, and we are persuaded that when we use the comprehensive system, the plants can be easily living in the land, in the ground. They are actively forming and shaping the vegetative mass, and they form more generative pods and flowers, which helps that they can form the goods. It is much more numerous in comparison with the technology where, in fact, we didn't use any preparations of our company. What it brought us to? It brought us to the substantial growth of the yield and also the high quality indicators as for the goods type of the products and the ingredients of the biochemical components, which improved as well, both in the open land ground and also in the protected land. We can see to the left the diameter of the fruit and the mass of the tomato, and to the right, you can see the same sort, but the diameter and the mass is much bigger in the comprehensive system of the use of our preparations.
Вирішили перевірити ефективності звичайних технологій або інтенсивних технологій
So we decided to choose the intensive technologies and to test them as well with the use of the mineral elements, the technologies which are recommended for certain farms, and our technology when we grow the tomatoes. What it led us to? First of all, it led us to the situation that you can see the overall yield and the goods yield of our technology is higher in comparison with the control or the recommended technology, and we increase the biochemical indicators of the dry substance, the overall sugar, the acid, ascorbic acid on the growth of with our technology. So it's a positive moment because the organic products, I will repeat, is much more relevant, much more acting and working, and the consumers are searching for it at our market. A very important element is the protection of the pests and the diseases of the vegetables. So those are very numerous, and dear colleagues, especially the ones who are connected with the agro-industrial growing, they understand that today the main is, of course, the protection. So how you can use that, which preparations you can use to get the high quality products. Our researches and our developments have precisely proved the efficiency of the use of certain fungicides, which can be found in our product line as the prevention to fight the bacterial diseases. These are phyticide and phytohelp preparations, and the prevention and treatment that is mycohelp. We've already proved their efficiency, and the dosage has already been checked for multiple times in different climate zones. That is why in zones of Ukraine, and that is why we recommend those preparations for the further use. If we speak about the organic growing and protection of the vegetables, again, the company has foreseen certain bioinsecticides, those the Betoxibacillinus, Lepidocidus, and Ectoworm formula. They are acting and efficient, they were proved, and that dosage is the proper one to totally get rid of or to restrict the number of harmful objects. If we speak about the farms which are characterized by the integrated farming, but so far there is no intention to have the transition to the organic, you can use the preparation of Ectoworm, and it also showed its efficiency, its advantage in those technologies of growing, so the norm of its use during the growing. Altogether, the vegetable farming foresees one more sub-branch, the mushrooms, that is to get fresh products during the winter and spring of such representatives as usual mushrooms and also Pleurotus striatus, and also the champignon, two-spore champignon. So if those representatives are the most popular among our producers, they prefer those mushrooms more and more, but their biology is connected with the being saprophytes, and they're using what they have in the substrate, a simple combination accessible for this mycelium. And of course, mushrooming foresees that the substrates can be very harmful, and those harmful are most of all the penicillium or the flies. So because of that, we had certain developments on that, and we proved the efficiency and the advantage of the use of phyticide as one of the elements to add to the substrate, the straw substrate, when we grow the usual mushrooms. Its dosage is not that big, but the efficiency of those bacteria showed that they restricted or didn't have given opportunity for the competitive mushrooms to be developed. They helped the provision to better use of the nutrients from straw or the substrate, and in the end of the day, it helped that to form more mushrooms on the body in these mushrooms, and their mass was much bigger in the oyster mushrooms for the technology where the phytocides, in fact, were not used. And in the end of the day, it brought to one more advantage, that besides 2 types of mushrooms, we got the 3rd wave of mushrooms in our technology. That is an additional yield. And if we speak about in the language of the producers, these are additional revenues of the farm. So from the one bag, we can get additionally the positive outcome in the goods equivalent and in the price one.
Проведені дослідження у нас щодо комплексного використання.
And we also have had certain researchers when we grew 2-spore mushrooms. We have proved that the use of phytocides, betoxybacillin, the phytocide from the green mold, trichoderma, and lepidocide from the flat fly, it brought that we got much higher yield of the 2-spore champignon, so the addition was very substantial. The farm itself was surprised with the results, and the head of the farm said that this is the future and this is the advantage of the organic production. So to conclude, I'd like to say, summing up my speech, that the organic vegetables and mushrooming have the life today. They have certain advantages, and they provide, first of all, the high quality, environmentally clean products where the consumers are coming for in the stores. And it provides, of course, the preservation of environment altogether for the further generations. And as for our company, I'd like to emphasize again, we are cooperating in spite of the size of the farm. Those could be smaller farms and bigger farms. Our experts, our professionals are coming to those farms, and we are providing the selection of the samples of the ground. We analyze what's in the ground. Then we develop the technological schemes. We provide the recommendations. We conduct the technological monitoring for those farms. And the heads of the farms are always positive, have always positive attitude, with the nice impressions of our cooperation. That is why I encourage all of you, all the agrarians, come to or consider such a sphere of organic growth, including the organic growth of vegetables. Thank you for your attention. That's it from me. Let me see. Sergey, thank you so much for your speech. Would you please answer all of the questions in the chat? Because we are short of time, and let us move to Yuri Shulga with his speech, please. Yuri? Hello? Do you hear me? Well, we do. You can see me and you can hear me, yeah?
Трохи світло мішає, так? Доброго дня ще раз всі учасники конгресу.
So, hello all of the participants of the Congress. We've listened to several speeches already on the growing of the plants. We've got lots of waste we need to process, and this part of the speech will be devoted to this topic. So we all know that when it is autumn or spring, a nice host is going to the orchard and begins to collect the. Yuri, would you share the screen again? Nothing is working. We don't see your presentation. Just a moment.
Як так?
Видно?
Видно.
Does it
вас?
work? Yes, we can see it. So, when it is autumn or spring, we collect whatever fell from the trees, whatever grew on the land, and we begin to burn it. But they don't understand that. First of all, he is the one who is suffering because of that. He's breathing with that smoke and with that dust, which is created when you incinerate that, and when you also poison your own body. Besides that, all of the piles of the garbage which are done after the wastes of our life, all of those waste deposits and graveyards, 98% of them are on the open ground. In some time, they are buried down, and we get harmful consequences and implications in the underground waters, which we then consume. The separate topic is the composting, as we said, of the waste. But it would be right to say side effects of the plant growing and animal breeding. Because it all is coming back to the land. Here are the traditional technologies of the storage of the droppings and in fact excrements. Lots of the things were done in that. There can be chemical and physical and biological pollution which get to the air and to the water, which can harm us, the animals, and the ecology altogether. Sorry. Do you see my presentation? Well, we don't see the presentation, we see some document. I do apologize for that. What's wrong? What's happening? Do you see it now? So there is the way out. No, we don't see it. No, you don't see my presentation? No, it wants to be shown, but you didn't share it. Could you stop the sharing and again begin with the scratch, from the scratch, share the PowerPoint? Everything is seen here.
Демонстрація.
Треба нажать совместное использование.
You should press the button of common share.
А це ж надо на мені так оце.
Якщо у вас так показує, я можу показати, ви будете говорити наступний
Well, I
слайд.
can share your presentation, and when you tell me next slide, I can show you whatever slide you need.
Якщо у вас там проблема є якась.
If you've got any issue with the application. I don't see any problem. Yuri, let us not take the time. Let Roman show the presentation, not to lose time. Okay, Roman, could you share my presentation? Okay, and you will just, thank you, Roman. So you will tell next slide and we will see it.
Який у вас був слайд третій, да?
Which slide did you have? The third one? Well, let's try with the third one.
У нас там є питання, поки ви виводите в чаті, про те,
So
що
far, we have the question whether all of the materials and all of the questions in the chat, yeah, will be, yes, they will be sent out. Would you show the next slide? So, as I already mentioned, the solution exists, that is composting. Composting is the natural anaerobic process of the decomposing of the organic waste with the action of the microorganisms to get the organic fertilizers, which we name compost. The next one, please. This technology of composting can be used not only in the waste of the animal breeding and plant growing, but also when we compost the usual food waste and also the remnants of the plants in the gardens and also the dry grass, leaves and branches, and then the graveyards and the remnants of the wastewater, and of course, some of the manure and excrements. The next one. The next one. So the advantages of aerobic composting in comparison with the traditional anaerobic composting. For the manure and excrements, as we can see, the anaerobic composting, there are much more advantages. We are saving the nutrients, so we have the accessibility of those nutrients for the plants. We decrease the operational losses to preserve them on the fields. We increase the areas to introduce organic fertilizers. We decrease the expenses for the acquirement of the mineral fertilizers and the crop protection agents. Or maybe we can get rid of mineral fertilizers at all. We can increase the resistance of the plants to the diseases and pests, and also we increase the structure and the fertility of the land. And as for the drawbacks, those are the two main points: the big expenditure for the equipment and the training of these specialists. But those are the first drawbacks. When you buy the proper equipment, you train the experts, then you have the payback period, and then you have the nice result. Anaerobic composting, we don't only pollute the air and the land, the ground, we decrease the amount of nutrients. When this compost is in the open air, for a year or 2 or 3, we lose up to half of the nitrogen and sulfur and other components. The next one. When we have anaerobic composting, there are main principles and rules, and we can't deal without them to get the high quality compost. First of all, for the microorganisms, we need nitrogen and carbon and their ratio. If this ratio is 25-30 of particles of carbon to 1 particle of nitrogen, then the organism is feeling okay and it's working fruitfully, quickly, and during the short period of time we are getting the high quality organic product. Besides that, as we're saying that this is the anaerobic composting, the oxidizing is also the inseparable part when we create this compost. So mixing some of the not dense grounds with not too wide, not too high layers, if this is the bigger volume. And also we need to control the humidity and the temperature. There are some critical points with the minimum and the maximum of humidity and moisture, and the same concerns the temperature. The bacteria cannot be working when we have the dry environment, and they are working when we have the moisture. The air does not get in between the particles of the organics, so this is the slowing down of the process. And also the inseparable part of this technology is the introduction of the additional biopreparations, like our preparations of a BTU Center company. Besides this preparation, the company of BTU Center for the private sector is producing such product as Unical, which is very popular in the private sector, and it can also be used for the composting, for the pits, and also we're using that for the strengthening of the animal breeding to decrease the smells. The following, please. So in more details, I'd like to tell you about the industrial product of our company, that is the biopreparation of Componaza, which in its ingredients has certain efficient microorganisms which is created for the organic wastes of the industrial, agricultural, and other origin. They have the organic standard, which is acknowledged by the state sanitary epidemiological expertise, and it can be used in different spheres. The next one, please. What's included into this preparation? First of all, the bacteria antagonists for the pathogenic fungi and bacteria for the plants. Bacteria, phosphor and potassium mobilizing bacteria, natural endophyte and land azotofixing, nitrogen fixing bacteria, the ferments for the decomposing of the pectins and lignins, the simplest one which can be found there. The products of metabolism, like polysaccharides, vitamins, phytohormones, amino acids, and of course, some of the macro and micro elements. Next one, please. Where do we use this biopreparation in our country? Mostly we're using this product in the aerobic composting. There are some of the farms which use this preparation up to spring for the manure of the cattle. Also, they use it with when we introduce it in the premises to decrease the smell in the dense layers for the deeper introduction, and also we use it directly with the liquid fraction of the manure when it is introduced on the fields to speed up mineralization and to fight with the pathogens. And also we have the recent feedback from the farms where they introduce it directly in the premises when they get the necessary cleaning and the formal anaerobic composting, technology of composting. From autumn to spring, they bought it, and in spring, they got the decreased amount of the waste. The straw is decomposed. Well, it's not the optimal technology like anaerobic one, but still everybody chooses the one what he or she likes most. The next one, please. The inseparable part of anaerobic composting is aerator. That's a device which can be on its own, or it can be an augmentary part, auxiliary part, and it provides the necessary functions. It totally drains and mixes the materials between themselves. It totally releases CO and replaces it with oxygen. It manages the temperature. It supports the necessary humidity with the help of the necessary parts of the device, and adds some of the inoculants to speed up the high quality use of the compost. The next slide, please. The process of the composting, it is divided into the temperature phases. The first one is mesophilic, a range when the temperature of the environment is increased up to 43, 42 degrees centigrade, then to ruin the cellulose and the hemicellulose, pectin and lignin of the plants. We accumulate the biomass of the organisms, and gradually we totally fix the nitrogen. This is a very short phase. It's done for the third or fourth day when we have the increase of the temperature. From the thermophilic range from 62 up to 80 degrees centigrade. That is why this process is called manageable, because we manage this temperature and we mix it and add water in a timely manner. During the thermophilic phase, we have the thermophilia bacteria working. The weeds seeds are ruined, which is important for the organic production, to introduce it additionally, to protect the crops. And also we totally kill the pathogenic agents. During this period and stage, it can last for 2 or 3 weeks. And after that, we come back to the synchronization of the organic waste. That is the mesophilic range again. When the temperature is not increasing, and when we have additional mixing, the compost is stabilized. We begin to work with mesophilic microorganisms. Those are biological components and complexes which are more accessible for the plants. And when we have the stable temperature for the environment, then this compost can be brought out of the land. The next one, please. According to our research, which we have conducted with our farms with whom we are cooperating, and during the sanitary research, we found out a high impact of bacteria and temperatures onto the pathogenic agents. So as for the dung and manure, we didn't find any of the microorganisms. As for Salmonella, you can see 300 colonies. It did not survive during those temperatures. Streptococcus went down 5 times, and Staphylococcus were also very obvious with their positive dynamics. The same happened with the excrements, bird excrements. The decrease of the pathogens is obvious, and rather often in the researches, we don't have those data, but sometimes there can be remnants with not that equal distribution under the aerator. The next slide. This is the outcome of the creation of composting in a month and a half or 2 months with the straw, with the droppings and operational technological solutions. The water was introduced, the bacteria and aeration. This is how we got the decrease of for 50% of those waste which are ready for use. As for the agrochemical indicators, the main thing we need to get when we have the weeds, those are the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium indicators. When we compare manure with the compost, we can see that in all of the samples, our indicator was higher, both as for the manure and the bird excrements or droppings. The technology with the use of the bacteria by our company provides positive results and increases the indicators of the compost. The next slide. So concluding with the work of our preparation, summing it up, I'd like to say again, why is it is used? This is the stabilizing of the combinations for the ammonia in the compost without losing, with a further transformation into nitrates and nitrates. The decrease of the unpleasant smell. In 10 days, the smell won't be there at all of any of the sulfur, oxygen, and hydrogen, and also will have the speedy formation of the humified substrate, stabilization of the compost without the energy loss, the decrease of the number of pathogenic microorganisms, and the enrichment of the compost with the useful microorganisms, and also the transition of macro and micro elements into the accessible forms for the plants. The next slide. The practical use. I already spoke about the farms which are composting 60 to 80,000 tons of manure into compost, and their use in the norm of 5 to 7 tons provides the positive results in the yield of the wheat, up to 6 tons as for corn and as for sugar beet. The next one, please. The farm of the Kyiv region was used for the composting, for the bird excrements. In our research for the control of the bird droppings, we had 9 tons per hectare. The compost, according to our technology, was produced for 8.5 tons per hectare, and the analog compost, we can look at the yield, plus 27 before the control of our company and 0.26 for the similar compost. The revenue was, as of 2019, more than 2,000 hryvnia. The next slide. The economic effect. Meeting with the host of the farm, with the agronomes, everybody is saying that this technology is nice, but it needs lots of expenses. Yes, definitely. The expenses, the losses are very substantial first. But when you calculate those expenses of the agrarian firm Korsun, we could see that because of the decrease of the amount of the fertilizers for 60%, because of the increase of the area of the use, we are achieving the economic effect which equals more than 2,000 hryvnia. The next one, please. For our partners, we are offering the full accompanying of this technology and the implementation of this technology in the farms. We provide the consultations and recommendations. We analyze and choose the elements, components for the composting. We provide the proper recipes and we choose the equipment and also the grounds for the composting, which provide the control for all of the technological processes, temperature, humidity, aeration. We define the norms of the use of the biopreparation of Companasa, and we train your experts of this technology. I thank you for your attention. I'm sorry for being so technical, but I guess that everybody got the necessary info and got some data which is necessary for use. Do you hear me? Yes, Yuri, we do. Thank you so much for your speech. Thank you, but as for now, we don't have any time left to answer all of the questions orally. So would you please write all the answers in the chat? So we will finalize the Congress now, Volodymyr. Yes, thank you everyone for your attention. I do hope it was interesting for you. There were nice questions posed, and you can always come to the hotline of BTU Center, where you can get more detailed recommendations and answers for the questions which were emerging with any aspects of the organic technology. From my behalf, I'd like to thank the company of BTU Center, because we're looking through the comments. It is written that everything is so cool, that these reports were full of sense and information, and I think that everything was really well done. Olena, please. Yes, maybe I'm so happy that we are totally stuck to the timing and now we can get relaxation. We are sorry for such a non-traditional comment for this full of sense conference, and I'm happy that we were able to make it those developments which several hours were spent, important hours were spent. I know that lots of days. The whole company of BTU was getting prepared. I'm so thankful that the part of the BTU has become the substantial part of the Congress of Organic Ukraine. So we just need to take and to have the proper transition from non-organic agriculture to the organic one. There is the team, there is the inspiration there, so please disseminate the information and have a nice success. Thank you, dear speakers, dear participants. We have approximately 100 of participants for the whole time, which witnesses about the huge interest. All of the participants will get the presentations as well. Please share them and help the development and the shaping of the organic market of Ukraine and the world. Thank you, Organic Ukraine, for the organization and the conduction of such a wonderful event, that you invited us and we have conducted that together. I do hope that we'll have success and we will grow with the partners and organic producers. Thank you, everybody. Yes, you will have lots of work, that's true. And simultaneously, I will tell you that in the conference of Ukrainian Green Course, and the main topic there is that the organic production is definitely one of the unique phenomenon which will help ecologization of the climate and to save the climate and the agriculture. That is why have a good success. Elena, thank you so much. And I would like to say that the results of the competition will be after the Congress is over. We will record the video through the randomizer and we will post them at the webpage of the BTU Center and Organic Ukraine. Thank you so much, the participants who joined us, and thank you, the ones who took part in the giveaway. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Goodbye. See you tomorrow. Join us tomorrow. Tomorrow is a very important topic, and Yuri Shulga, who was the last speaker, will be the speaker tomorrow about probiotics, because the compost topic should be the one more step forward. We should give and add some animal food for the probiotics, for the composting to take place even better. Yes, I agree with you. You will tell about that in more detail, so we invite you tomorrow. That's a very important and valuable day. See you. Okay, goodbye.
Всім до побачення.